feel the same way about this conversation. Hi, Coach. How are you?
I'm all fired up from hearing that speech that I just gave last night. Yeah. Let's go.
Did you inspire yourself?
I inspired myself. Who knew?
I mean, I wanted to play it again and count the table hits. We set the over-under at about 19.5. We haven't had a chance to go back through it, but can you speak to that? Like what? Because obviously, if you said that in a press conference, I'm going to infer that there have been some conversations behind the scenes, and Draymond's talked about it. You guys are working on Brandon and his emotions and his approach to the game. How can you put that into words for Warriors fans?
Yeah, I mean, everything I said has already been said to Brandon. The reason I said it to the media is there's a little, it puts a little pressure on him. And I never say anything that I don't think about first. So that didn't just come, out of anger for the loss. That came because he needs to get the message. And the message is a really important one because he's such a good player. He's such an important player for us. But he's a typical young player, second year, a guy who's, trying to forge his identity and figure out who he is. All young players go through this. And it's not an easy process because you have to make some mistakes to recognize, who you are, what you can do, what you're capable of, and also what your team needs from you. And so we just need Brandon to speed up the process because, you guys were talking about it. We've got Steph and Draymond who are Hall of Famers and still playing at a really high level, but they're older, and we're trying to fit this thing together now and have a great season. So we need Brandon to take that next step, and I'm confident that he will.
Steve, you just said something real interesting when you said you never say something that you don't think about first, because that's literally what I wanted to ask you with regard to what you said last night about the refs. And I know this is a tough subject, and we don't want to put you in a bad position, but when the refs come up in a press conference, does that come from your emotions are still boiling, or do you strategically feel like I need to say this and I'll just go ahead and take whatever comes with it?
Yeah, I mean, it's there's always some emotion involved after a game like that, after the situation at the end, with the timeout call, and so there's frustration for sure. But I think I always say stuff with the idea in mind that we as coaches have influence as long as we are reasonable and make reasonable suggestions. I think the league listens. They do a great job of listening to us. And I just, that was obvious to everybody in the building, including Aaron Gordon, Brown's teammate, that he called a timeout. Aaron immediately was like, no, we don't have any left. Every media member after the game was telling me, why didn't they, give them the time? Like I had fans, I had friends at the game who were in the 30th row. And, they hadn't seen the replay. They just said, why didn't they call timeout? So it can't be that the whole arena sees it, both teams see it, but the three refs don't see it. And I made it clear in my comments after we didn't lose the game because of that. That would have given us, a chance. So I'm not blaming the loss on that. It's just frustrating when there's an obvious play that doesn't get called.
Steve, to go back to what you said about Brandon Podziemski, I mean, I'm trying to put myself into his shoes, and he's a rookie last year, obviously, 19th overall pick, maybe comes in with that not a ton of expectations around him, has a great year, is an all-rookie team selection. In the offseason, Joe Lacob, owner of the Warriors, says he's a future all-star. I know I'm not asking you to comment on trades, but obviously there were rumors with his name involved and all-star players around the league. He stays a Golden State Warrior. You guys have all sung his praises, rightly so. He's very deserving of that. But I try to put myself in his shoes, and then he starts off the season struggling to shoot the basketball. You mentioned second year being challenging for everybody. I can imagine if I was in the same spot as Podziemski, I would have a little bit of a hard time. So what exactly is he going through right now, and how does a second-year player try to overcome those things?
Well, before I get to that, I would say that he played a hell of a game last night. So while the focus has been on the mistakes that he made, He made some big-time plays, and this is why I'm on him, because I know what he's capable of. And, but again, this just goes back to, as a young player, you got to figure out your place in the league, who you are, what helps your team win, all that stuff. And so, as it relates to everything you just said, yeah, that's, every player has his own story. So Brandon had a really good rookie year, came into his second year, and he's thinking, I got to do this, I got to do that. And he's just lost a little focus on what actually wins. And, for example, the fouling, the 2 3-point shooters, we can't do that. We've talked about this from day one of camp. Fouling jump shooters it leads to losses. It really does. I mean, you can see that stat in the league. You can feel it. Not just the free points. It's having to take the ball out of the net. It's getting to the bonus earlier. So, I think Brandon's trying too hard. I mentioned that in the press conference too. He's trying so hard to make a great play every time. And you can't do that. You can't play that way. So maybe he's just trying to justify everything from last year or Joe's comments or whatever. I don't know, but it's all part of it. So I'm not concerned about it at all. I just want him to understand that we've got to speed up this process of growth as it relates to what wins games and what we need from him. And that's part of what's happening right now.
Steve Kerr's with us on Willard and Dibbs, 95.7 The Game. Coach, I got to imagine you said all that also because you feel like he can handle it. I bet not all can. How do you go about?
That's right.
How do you go about figuring out how to handle different players in the media?
Just get to know them and get a feel for their personalities and what's the best way to address each guy, and is it just privately and never say anything to the media? I always approach guys privately first, but every once in a while, I think it's using the media as a way to get the message out there and make it a real issue. That can be a positive thing for some players. That's my gut here. I think it's really going to help Brandon in this case.
Would you like to use us right now to get any other messages out?
I'm good for now, but
okay.
Thank you for offering.
All right, yeah, invite stands, just so you know, Coach.
Perfect.
Coach, obviously last night without Draymond Green, there was going to be a change to the starting lineup. You also changed the rotations, at least the patterns for Steph Curry. Instead of playing like the first 8 minutes of the first and then the final 8 of the second and so on and so forth, you're kind of playing him in 4-minute bursts. I'm wondering what was the plan behind that? To me, it was maybe get him on the court to begin the fourth quarter, and it worked out. I mean, you guys started the fourth on a 19-3 run. You build that double-digit lead. We know what happened down the stretch, but what went into that decision to shift around Steph's minutes?
Well, just you lose 5 in a row. You have to look for ways to shake things up, and so that was something that Steph brought up to me a few days ago. He said, "Hey, I'm willing to do that. If you want me to do it." We did this a few years ago when we were struggling. And so this is typical of Steph. He's just selfless and always willing to do whatever it takes to help the team. So, but the idea behind it is you change up the lineup combinations, you limit the amount of time that you're stuck, without Steph on the floor. Instead of one long 8-minute stretch, you have 2 4-minute stretches. And it allowed us to change up the combinations and look at some different lineups. So with Draymond out, it made perfect sense to start Looney and JK and mixing in the change to Steph's pattern allowed us to get to some other lineups too.
Coach, how is Draymond and what is the level of concern?
Yeah, he's doing well. He had the MRI today. We don't have the results yet. But all in all, I talked to him yesterday. He said he's feeling pretty good. We'll have more tomorrow. My gut is that this is not going to be, a super long term issue, but we'll have to see what our training staff says tomorrow.
Yeah, even if the news is good, how do you guys plan? Draymond and Steph are both dealing with stuff, and you're at the quarter pole here. How do you manage this, even if the news is good?
exactly how we're doing it. Both guys are around 30 minutes or less per game. We think that will pay off over the long haul. Both guys have, I think yesterday was the first game Draymond has missed, but Steph's missed about 4 games, out of the first 20, with various injuries and, being banged up. And so if you just look at it from a big picture standpoint, hopefully at the end of the year, both guys will not have been overworked, and they'll be ready to go for the playoffs. So that's the plan.
Coach, I know you've talked in the past about not just limiting Steph's minutes, but while he's on the court, it's about maybe taking some of the stress and the pressure off of him and trying to relieve some of that pressure. Obviously, the DeAnthony Melton injury, I think, probably makes it a little more difficult to do that. And without Draymond Green for at least last night, who knows into the future, what's the challenge in making sure Steph doesn't have to exert himself too hard in those about 30 minutes that he's getting?
Well, that's where the Brandon piece comes in. He's going to play the non-Steph minutes. He's our backup point guard. There's a reason that I said what I said last night. He is the guy most capable, Brandon is, of taking charge of our team, whether Steph's on the floor or not, and making sound decisions, getting us organized, and making one good play after the next. He controls the game. He plays a different position from all of our other young guys. Those guys are all wings and not really point guards, decision makers. So Brandon's the guy who we're counting on to help get us organized, and then it's up to us as coaches to put him and the rest of our guys in the best positions possible.
Steve Kerr with us, Willard and Tibbs, 95.7 The Game every single week. Coach, if my memory serves, a few weeks ago where we asked you, like with that whole 13-man rotation thing, how many games into the year before you really want to have it tightened up and you want to know who you are? And I feel like you said about 20. And 12 plus 8 is 20. So who are you? And how do you want to do this going forward?
We are a really good team. We're 4th in the league in defense. We have not made shots during this stretch, which is, in the modern NBA, often just the difference between winning and losing. Who's making threes and who's not. And right now we're not making threes. And I think in the midst of that, we lost a little confidence. We lost a little defensive edge. And so I think that, while we're in the midst of this streak, I still see a really good team with great chemistry, great energy. Guys care about each other. They work hard. And I'm confident that if we can stay relatively healthy, that, what you've seen through 20 games is who we are, which is a 50-win team. And it's never perfectly linear how you get there. You're going to have some good stretches and some bad stretches, and we've obviously had both. But I really like this team, and I think we're going to be really good.
Coach, it's no secret your team has had some fourth quarter struggles, especially offensively recently. I mean, last night is one example, but there's a couple of others that we can point to. The end of the Brooklyn game, and you had big leads in Houston and Oklahoma City as well that you nearly lost late in those games as well. When your team is going through like a stretch where you just can't get a bucket to fall for whatever reason, where's the balance for you as the head coach in terms of like trying to get some structure and calling a set and maybe calling a post-up for Wiggins or Kuminga or whoever it might be versus, continuing with the free-flowing offense? I know oftentimes at the end of games you don't like to call timeouts because you like the chaos that's on the floor at times. But when everything is seemingly going wrong, how do you balance keeping that freedom versus trying to structure something just to take the lid off the basket?
Yeah, I mean, that's why we practice and execute, in our practices to get ready for those moments. And you're always trying to get easy baskets in transition and pushing the pace. But you're also, working on half-court sets and figuring out, spacing and combinations and all that. So we work on that all the time. And obviously we have not closed games well, and it's an area we've got to improve.
Coach, you've been outspoken in the past in not liking replay. And look, we've gone through the ref stuff from last night, but this is a replay question that I have. The call that knocked Kevon Looney out of the game last night, I thought was a terrible call. They review it and they uphold it. And one of the things that hits me is the official who's reviewing it is also the official who called it. And therefore, as a human being, they're gonna sort of look to be right. Is that one of the flaws? Do we need someone else doing the replaying?
Yeah, judge and jury, right? It's,
right.
That's a tricky one. I don't love it. I would prefer that somebody in New York at the league office make the decision to take the human emotion out of it. But this is what it is. So you just you just deal with it.
Coach, I thought Jonathan Kuminga had himself a really nice first half, really most of the game. It wasn't quite as efficient from the field in the second half, but I saw him passing up open threes, dribbling in, and using the backboard. It looked like Tim Duncan off the glass a couple of times. He took a three in the corner when he was wide open, and he was in rhythm. He was driving and kicking a couple of times. What'd you see from Jonathan Kuminga, again, specifically in that first half? I thought it was one of the better halves we've seen him play this year.
Yeah, he was really good. I think it helped him, playing next to Looney. Loon is has a way of just making the game easier for everybody with his screening and offensive rebounds. And there was a lot of space on the floor for JK, and it's fun to see him get off to a good start and really help us last night. I thought JK was really good.
Steve, the analytics of it all last year sort of, suggested that Jonathan and Andrew weren't doing great together. Has that changed this year?
Well, it depends on who they're with, and that's part of the challenge of this year's team so far. Is they got a lot of moving parts, and obviously we've been playing so many people that we've got plenty of data on a lot of different lineups. But I think at this point we have a pretty good feel for who we want to play together and who we want to avoid putting together and that kind of stuff. But that's all part of coaching and especially this team. Some teams that I've coached, it's pretty obvious and automatic kind of who we're gonna play and when. This one, I'll bet if you looked at the last 10 games, we might have a different closing lineup every single game. So we're still kind of searching for everything that we're trying to get to feel the most comfortable about our group. We're not there yet.
What about Moses Moody last night, Steve? He was scoreless in the first half, 0 for 3 from the field, and then he was one of the guys that carried your offense in the second half. Without him, that second half would have looked a whole lot more ugly. 13 points in the second half alone. I know you've talked in the past about his ability to stay ready given inconsistent minutes at times. How impressive is it, though, when you call upon him, and I know he's been going through a little bit of a shooting slump, that he's going out there and he's not lacking any confidence. He's putting up shots, and good to see him get a couple to fall last night, I'm sure.
Yeah, that was big time, to be scoreless in the first half in the midst of a little bit of a slump here the last couple weeks, and then to bounce back and make some big shots and really help extend that lead in the fourth quarter. Moses was great. He's always prepared and professional, and he's part of the group that gives us the 3-point accuracy. With this team, and he and Buddy Hield were really both hot early in the season, which helped us win a lot of games, and good to see Moses, catching fire last night. Hopefully that's a sign of things to come.
All right, Coach, I'm a big fan of multitasking. I try to do it as well. We got to know what it is. What's the noise? Are you in the background? Are you wrapping Christmas presents right now, or what's going on while you're chatting with us here?
I'm cooking dinner.
You are?
Oh.
So that was Lucas's guess. What are you making?
I am making stir fry.
What do you put in your stir fry, Coach?
Oh, I got some swordfish, some lime, and cilantro, and it's a nice recipe I've got.
And how many are you cooking for?
3, my daughter and her husband. So
and do the dogs get a little bit?
They are at my feet as we speak. Both of them. Yeah,
you can't.
Hoping for some scrap.
They're well behaved. I haven't heard a bark this time.
Yeah, because they're staring they're locked in on the swordfish, aren't they?
That's right. That's right.
All right. Well, Coach, go eat, enjoy. Thank you.
Great to chat with you guys, and we're going to bounce back. So, I like I said, I feel good about this team, and it's going to be a fun year.
Beautiful. Big game tomorrow night.
All
Good
right.
luck against Houston.
Thanks, guys. Take care.